Good day, good day. Thank you all for tuning in again to One of One. And today we got a special guest. This is a special occasion for us here at the show, myself and James, because we have one of our brothers in here, one of our own, the one, the only, Caleb Hiers. Now, also, this gentleman goes by many a moniker. He goes by Black Sheep Photography, and he has other monikers that I will not divulge here because they're not even pronounced to me. But he was kind enough to make some time before one of his shoots later today to stop in with us and just chat for a while. So thank you very much for joining us today, Caleb.
That's my pleasure.
All right, so to give us a quick rundown for those who may be less familiar with your work, man, give us like a top level view, the elevator pitch for what it is that you bring to the table at this stage in your life.
I'm so interested in just creating beauty, predominantly visually. My main focus is photography, but across my whole life, I've basically been creating visual arts for as long as I can remember. That covered anything from drawing to painting, and now photography and some digital art in between. But yeah, I'm fascinated by what beauty is. Why things appeal to me and why others doesn't, and in comparison to other people, and it's just something I've found that the creation of the art is where I feel alive, and I feel like I could do it forever. I could even do it for free, and still enjoy it a lot. That's where I'm at.
Okay. Now, was there like an inciting incident that really got you into the artwork? Was it, an encouraging teacher? Was it just, I'm bored, so I want to experiment? What really got you in to come back again, other than that, the first time you may have put pencil to paper or taken a photo? What really got you hooked?
I think it was kind of a couple tiers of that hook getting reset in as I was growing up. The big thing is when I was developing the craft. So my mother is an artist as well. And I think a lot of mothers, when the kids are drawing a little picture or whatever, the normal reaction is, oh, this is fantastic. They throw it on the fridge,
Yeah.
And that's about as deep as it goes. With my mother, she wasn't a mother in regards to the art. She was an artist.
Yeah.
So it would be more like, oh, it's good, but the eye's a little wonky. Yeah. Or have you looked at doing it this way?
Yeah.
Or, now, admittedly, growing up, I hated that.
Yeah.
I hated it. It was so annoying because I'm very kind of analytical, and which is interesting because art is usually viewed as the other way around. It's more like not analytical. But so I feel like I was always combating the idea of like right and wrong within art, which I think is a really wrong way of looking at it. Because you shouldn't really look at it as a math problem, like, is this right? I think the farthest you should go is, does this feel right? So I think in the beginning, it was more of that challenge. I wanted to draw better so that my mom would not have nothing to say, but like, good job. But she always had something to say. Yeah. And the running joke is, I tease her about this. She hates this, but I think it's funny. And it's like, the only reason I got good at art is because my art never made the fridge. And then she's like, I was a good mother. Don't say that. But it really does. Like, the only reason I was developing my craft was because I was constantly being exposed to constructive criticism. Yeah. And I think a lot of people aren't exposed to that kind of thing, at least not that regularly. And it's the most useful tool if like getting hard truth. Maybe it's not comfortable, but then you grow from that because you know where things could be improved. So that initial challenge was kind of like the propellant. And then I think when I got older, like high school, was when I first started realizing like I could sell these portraits and stuff. And I was doing like pop culture stuff, like Lord of the Rings and stuff like that, because that was coming out at that time. I'm dating myself a little bit.
Hey, no
but yeah, And so all the way until that point, I had just been exploring like pencil drawings. But I was lucky enough. I had a few opportunities come along my way just from word of mouth and stuff that propelled me into different medium. But I would say, the initial part was just trying to get better enough so that my mom, who's an artist, would say like, damn, crushed it. And then I think the second thing was like the actual business side of like, oh, it's a weird thing of like coming across the belief of like something such as art could be a viable way of making a living, you know?
Yeah.
And then I would say like the last chapter really would be the fantastic part about photography is that it's still art. You still get to create these beautiful images and implement your ideas while adding in like being brought in front of people. That's my favorite part that photography brings that painting, I don't know if it would bring such a high quantity because you get a lot of solitude, you know, when you lock away in a studio, which is great. But I don't know. I like the people. I like the variety that adds as you engage with these other professionals, these people that also seek creative outlets, whether they're makeup artists or the models or small businesses, ways of building brands. I just think that's such a fun thing to have be regular in your life, you know?
Yeah, most definitely. Now, I feel like James can speak a bit to this. But that part that you mentioned, well, one, the creative criticism or the constructive criticism rather, it does seem very important because especially nowadays, it's kind of been this way for the last few years. I feel like it's kind of increased or crescendoed, but that mentality of, you know, don't hurt a child's feelings or tell a child that whatever they're doing is the right thing. And so I feel like James has some interesting thoughts just kind of from a mentality standpoint on that aspect. And then segueing into the financial viability of creativity and how one can methodically move in that direction. So James, if you wouldn't mind, I feel like you got some thoughts on that.
Yeah, I would say that there's a big problem with our mental fortitude in 2021, 2020, the last decade, the last 20 years potentially. We have a lot of people that are very weak, and we ourselves in this room at points have been weak. I think it's very interesting when you talk about the artist journey. You know, you speaking about starting in the medium of pencil, going into other things. You and I have had other conversations off screen here, talking about all of the various mediums that you've been a practitioner of. But I think that something needs to be said, and we might need to kind of ping pong here. And Caleb, I'd love your thoughts first in what you think is necessary to maintain your mental health as you're exploring these creative mediums. And as you're going into creation, you're going into the solitude, you're going into the failure that is externally, I guess, it's externally focused there. With you releasing art and going from a place where you're with a physical medium with the pencils and the oil into this place where there are more people. You want to kind of walk us through where you think that artist journey, what your mental needs to be, and where the key things that you must have mentally sound, and the things that process most opens you up to?
I think that the thing you need to have before you do anything is you need to know that you enjoy it. I think that's it's so simple, but like you do need to know that. Because a lot of times I think we start ahead of that moment and we start with the critical portion where it's like, oh, I don't see how that could happen, or I don't see how it could be more than just a hobby. But you need to back it up and just say, do I love doing this, or how do I feel when I'm doing this? And know that that's a good thing if you know that. Like if you found that thing that you're like, I just love it. I don't really have a reason for it, but I like to do it. I think that's the starting point. You really need to like look in the mirror and know that that's a really cool thing you've found just going through life. And then everything else can come after that. So it's important. I found that it's so, at least for me, it's so easy to start after that and kind of walk yourself down off of betting on yourself doing something that you love, just because you can't figure out the ladder that you're going to take to make it happen. So yeah, once you know that, hey, I enjoy this thing and I'm passionate about it, it makes me feel ways that I don't feel when I'm just vegging out in front of the TV or working a 9 to 5 or whatever. And don't get me wrong. There's like this fallacy, I think, where, especially like in the creative sector, especially if you're working for yourself, that it's not a 9 to 5, and thus, you know, you have all this free time. While it's not a 9 to 5, meaning that you don't work for someone and clock in at 9 and then leave at 5. You generally have to work more than 9 to 5. I think people don't look at it like that, but any kind of entrepreneurship, especially in the creative realm, you have to find ways to get the work done and get it out. And so all the more reason of why you should definitely know with certainty and conviction that this is something you're passionate about, because it is going to take a lot of work. Sometimes it's going to take work that removes you from your social environment because you got to get the work done. And then sometimes it's going to be scary because you're doing things you've never done before, or you're working in spheres you've never been before. So it's nice to have that kind of reminder in your soul that this is because this feeds your soul. This is why we're doing this at the end of the day. And so that's the most important part, at least in the beginning. And then for me, and I can only speak from my perspective, but I think that I always needed, like, if I could see other people doing it, it was so beneficial to me. Other people can just figure it out, and I've certainly taught myself things before as well, but it just was way quicker if I could just see other people doing it. So my advice to myself would be, get around those people that are doing what you want to do and make that a habit of being around those people, because more will wash over you than you realize. And that includes your belief system in what is possible. So if you wanted to pursue the gallery game of art, which a lot of people would say is very political, but honestly, everything is subjective as far as art goes. People like Marvel movies. People hate Marvel movies. It is what it is. You're doing this for you at the end of the day. So, yeah, my thing is get around people that are doing similar, if not the same thing as you. Mimic them, copy them, or better yet, reach out to them, have lunch with them.
Did you say chase them down for tacos
down
for 6 weeks? Is that what you said? Is that what I heard?
I walked right into that. Yeah. Just real quick, tangent real quick. That's actually how I met James. That's why he's laughing right now. I liked his work on Instagram. I had made a decision that I was trying to bring myself in front of people that my current jobs were not, which is other people doing photography. A photographer is going to find his way to makeup artists, models especially, but other photographers, I don't know, sometimes it can seem kind of gated, or people are siloed off by themselves. I don't know if that's just because the nature of the work doesn't bring you around them or what, but I just wanted to meet more photographers because I feel like they come from different angles, and it's always something to learn. So yeah, I hunted James down. I tried to get lunch with him for forever. I'm sure I seemed like some kind of wacko, being how persistent I was. But I think after about 6 months, I did manage to get okay, fine. Well, let's go get some tacos then. You weirdo. And it was a really great time because. It doesn't have to go this way, but it just so happened that we clicked on a lot of the same ideas, and it was just kind of effortless as far as conversation. So became fast friends and continue to learn from each other. So that's a fun little story. But yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but I think that you should know that you're passionate about it and know that that's a great thing to find. And then I would say surround yourself with people doing similar things so you can find out what the ladders look like that you're trying to climb.
And Sae'Von, before you go into the viability monetarily of art, could I get both of your perspectives on what you would say to somebody that calls any of us, texts any of us, or is out there thinking or listening to this right now and does not know how to proceed when their family doesn't believe in them, when their friends don't believe in them, when their significant other tears them down when they come home for dinner, when they're talking, their parents or their close family are talking at familial events and your name gets brought up and it's said that you're a creator, you're a photographer, you're a painter, and immediate condescension comes down. Immediate bullshittery comes down on you as an individual because of your societal status based on that word, the modifier, that is representation of you. Let's start with Sae'Von over here, if you would. But what is y'all's opinion on that? Because I think that is something that we don't talk about as creatives enough, but we all see it almost every day.
Yeah, well, I think similar to the point that you were just making, Caleb, there has to be a foundational layer of secureness in oneself. There has to be some rooted foundation of a belief in oneself and whether that's, people give it different meaning, right? For some people, it's like you said, it's that joy of that expression, that medium. For other people, they find that there's some purpose because they're putting a message in it. For others, it's just a fun way, to spend their time. But I think that if there's not that bedrock, if there's not that root, chakra solid of like, hey, this is a part of who I am, or this is something I'm choosing to engage with, choosing to do, then it's going to be very hard to build anything on top of that that can make somebody resilient to any attempts to diminish or minimalize any of that world, that creativity, because historically speaking, for survival reasons, it's not like people have really chosen creativity or creation as a means of survival. And we get to a more modern time. As we all know, most people are going out, getting regular jobs, working in offices, doing all these things that reach what they view as that quote-unquote success. And it's often not until somebody who would identify as a creator or creative reaches some other level, whether it be working with a certain artist or a monetary milestone or a notoriety milestone, that then there starts to be this kind of societal affirmation that what they're doing is valuable. So for an individual kind of in that interim period, there has to be a lot of security in one's own self. And even those moments where it wavers, as it has for myself, I think that's where, at the same time, even though it may sound contradictory, the creator, the artist, and this is what any person needs to understand, that they're not what it is that they do. Even you take somebody like Kendrick Lamar, or you take, Pablo Picasso, sure, to the world, they may be an artist, a rapper, a painter, whatever, but at the end of the day, as individuals, we are not simply the things that we have done. We're not simply, the tasks that we have spent our time doing. And I think if one can also align with that realization, then it allows one to be more resilient to any sort of trigger that might come from a critique or a shot at what it is they do.
So here's the tricky part, though. When you ask that question, I can't help but think about myself, as well as just other people out there. Okay, you're finding your way. You know that you like this thing, or you feel like there's purpose behind this thing. You've just found it. So the knowledge is there, but maybe it's not cemented in yet. Yeah. And then you're receiving these kind of destructive labels or critiques that I know that a lot of people, if they wanted to go into a creative realm, including my own parents, more so my dad than my mom. I think it's a parent's nature to want the safe route for the children rather than they want them to be risk adverse. It's just, I think that's kind of a intuitive thing of like, well, if you go to college and you get some kind of degree and then you work a 9 to 5, it's safe because it's predictable. Yeah. But I feel like there's no life in that, especially if someone's saying, I want to do this art thing. So the tricky thing is what if you found something that you like and you're receiving that before it's like so solid? That's when things, I think a lot of people get derailed because you've got someone who's really good at painting, but the parents are like, no, you're going to go and be a doctor like your father did and your father's father kind of thing. Yeah. And that's just it. And then they do that whole thing, that even Gary Vee talks about where it's like, we're paying for your college. This is what you're going to do. Yeah. And of course, his response to something like that is, then don't go to college on their bill.
And that's what I would
You know.
say. But obviously, we're opening up cans of worms because everybody's situation
Just popping them
is
open,
different.
just
But it's good to explore it because everybody's situation is going to be different. And while it would be a beautiful thing if people could be encouraged to pursue their interest, it doesn't always work that way. And for some people, let's keep it G. They may feel that burning passion. They may think that that's what they can do. But what if, just similar to your mom giving you, honest feedback so that you could get to the level in your skill that you could actually carry it forward as a viable career? Sometimes there's that delusion, where folks maybe are too ahead of themselves. And so it's like, how do you balance that enthusiasm and that eagerness with that also?
You're talking about like the singers that make it into the first round of American Idol, and they're like, "How did you get this far,
Exactly.
bro? You shouldn't be."
If you had a parent that was ready to pay for school for you, and that is a viable route, it's another thing that you do have some interest in. So, I mean, obviously,
I think what I think the solution is to that.
What's up?
I think, and it takes patience on the parents' end because they want to just pay and get it done, so you're out the house or whatever, and you're on the path that they've set. I think if you, instead of kind of strong arming where you want your kids to go, just allow them to fail.
Yeah.
Like, so if they're like, I want to do this, and then they're like, I want you to go to college because it's way safer, and the ROI seems way higher. I want maybe like take us 2 semesters off, maybe a whole year. Or like, that is a whole year, isn't it? Maybe 2 years, 2 years or whatever, and let them play it out.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's safe to give them a deadline. You could say you can do what you're trying to do, but you got to set it up and be viable to a certain extent after a year. If not, you're going back to college. Yeah. I think that would solve a lot of this stuff if there was some kind of disagreement there. Because you're going to find truth one way or the other. Yeah. Either it's not working or you never felt more alive. Or maybe somewhere in the middle. But it's like, you're not gonna be still confused in the same way you were before of like, what is the best path? Let's just do a process of elimination through failure. And then that's where your conviction comes from. Yeah. I mean, that's Kevin Hart's story.
No, I think that
he did that, or he set himself because his mother was concerned because he was having a hard time paying his own rent. And so he said, well, I want to do this, but I'm going to give myself just 1 year to get the money popping in such a way that I can support myself. Yeah. And he did. It was like right on the 1 year marker that it seemed to be solidified. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that just speaks to motivations and parameters. Just like, it's a stupid, goofy example, but it's like, all right, we sit down, to some degree, our podcast length is dictated by how long these cameras record, right? So that's a parameter. It's like, all right, we sit down, boom, we got X amount of time to get it done. And so with a child or somebody in that position of, okay, I have this dream, this goal, that's a little lofty, maybe a little risky, put some parameters around it. You can't control everything about that situation. For instance, somebody who wants to get into a gallery, you can't really control if a person says yes or no, but you can control how much time you spend working on those pieces. You can control how much time you did researching the history of that particular venue, what they like to put in there, and you can put parameters in place that guide the entropy down some sort of funnel where ultimately another choice has to be made. And for those listening, I mean, yeah, you can get to the end of that rope, and it doesn't mean that, I could never try this again, but it does mean another decision has to be made. If Kevin Hart didn't get that bread, it'd have to be I don't have the money, so maybe I got to take 3 months, stack some bread, and then I can go back at it for another 6 months, or whatever. But
yeah.
Some type of parameters often needed so that things can maintain some sense of coherence and manageability.
Well, restrictions are the best thing as far as creativity goes. Margins are the best thing. That pressure is needed, I think. And most of the time, I think that comes just by default of situation. It's very rare that a person wants to pursue something and they've just been given, all right, you have all the money, you have all the time, you have all this just to do the thing. And honestly, I think if that scenario was to happen, I don't think it would get done. Yeah. Everything from making movies to working your 9 to 5 comes with deadlines, comes with like a time end, it must be done. And if it's not time, then it comes like if you're working for yourself, it comes with constraints financially or the people that you are able to work with to get it done. There's always going to be limitations. which force you to think creatively of like, how am I going to get this done on a budget of $25?
Yeah.
But the highly successful show of It's Always Sunny, their pilot episode was made for something stupid like $100 or something really low. And that's all they needed was to bet on themselves, spend almost nothing, and bank on their writing and their acting. And then, and now they're still running. So I think, constraints are awesome. They feel frustrating, but I mean, you make music. I don't know how much you play around with Pro Tools and all that, or Logic or whatever, but you could sit down for a week and buy a new pack of sounds every single day, every single hour. You could, if you had the money, and then what? You sit down and create a song, and what, you're going to allow yourself to use every single sound? It's going to be trash.
You got to put
guard. Yeah, the limitations is where that focus comes from. I mean, it's actually apropos to compare it to a laser. If that light was shooting everywhere, it wouldn't be focused at all. But certain lasers can literally burn holes in the shit.
Yeah.
That's some focus.
Yeah, that is some focus.
Yeah. So I think the rest of this conversation should be about physics, since we're here.
Well, funny you mentioned that, because physics in our current density of space and time dictate that we have run to one of the edges of our time allotment for this particular episode. And full disclosure to everybody listening, this was on me because I didn't have shit set up by the time Caleb pulled up. So we lost about 45 minutes. But good thing I know where Caleb lives, so I can go to his house and we can get the rest of this interview. But all seriousness, man, thank you, Caleb, for coming on. And before we do head off, man, take a few moments just to let people know what you got going on right now. I know there's some things, projects you're working on. Maybe you want to share, maybe you want to tease. But take a few minutes and just let the people know what you got going on, where they can find you.
Yeah, well, first, thank you for having me. I think it's always fun chopping it up. I think we could go forever. So that's always fun. But yeah, if you want to find my work, photography first, it's going to be _photography. But I'll spell it for you because it was a little strange. I thought I was real clever when I made that handle. I just took my name and I kind of rearranged the letters. The only exception is I did use a P instead of the R in my last name, but fuck it, it's pretty clever. But yeah, so it's BLACSHIEP _photography spelled normally. And you can go to CalebHiers.com. That's CalebHiers.com, and you can rewind that if you need that. That's my website, and you can reach me there on both platforms pretty easily. Yeah.
All right. Excellent. Anything else you want to let the people know about? Anything?
I mean, I've got this really cool project. It's a little bit of a passion project that came up out of a client job that started it, but it's essentially it's a photo book called Curves and Cars, where we've got classic '68 Mustang muscle car that's been souped up a little bit. And we've got beautiful women hanging all over it in a lot of different lighting scenarios. So a little something for everybody. If you like cars, you'd like it. If you like pretty women, you'd like it. And if you're into any kind of beautiful imagery, you'd like it. And I will say, personally, I think some of my best work is in here. I have allowed myself to stretch and implement a lot of, both in photography and in the post-editing side, a lot of different techniques that I've learned along the way. And good news is it is mostly a photo book, but there will be information in there that gives you a little bit of a peek behind the curtain as far as what thought went into setting the photo up, or what thought went into the color grading that was done afterwards, or even some digital composites that I did inside there. For example, there's an image, looks really clean, open sky, but the original image had this gigantic brick wall halfway behind the car, so it was reflecting in the car. All has been removed. So there's some cool little nuggets in there that you may not know if we didn't point it out. So I think there's something in there for everybody, a little bit of visual, a little bit of knowledge that you want to pick up. That's going to come out. I should have a link up by the end of this week that you can sign up if you're interested in, just saying, hey, my name's so-and-so. I think this car book sounds like a cool idea, and I'll get you the information after that.